How we doing? Fox back again, carrying on with this VPS Avenger mini-series. Today we're going to be going over wavetables, or more in depth, the editor that you get to be able to modulate the wavetables, scan through the audio files, different looping options and ways that you can mangle the wavetable once you've decided which one that you want. So, without too further ado, the way you choose a wavetable is this little box at the top here where it says saw wave. If you click on it, brings up all the different classes of waveforms. We've got VA shapes, freeform. We'll be going over that in a later video. It's where you can draw your own wave shapes. Wavetables we're doing today. Resample, where you can resample your own sounds. Samples, where it says a list of samples. Special samples, and these looks like just some attacks and stuff. If I'm honest, I haven't looked at these. Just some attacks and stuff. Just some attacks and stuff you could have to sounds to give it a bit more punch. Granular synthesis, this is a new addition in a new update. For some reason I haven't got any sounds to load in this granular section. I'm going to message them and find out, but you can load your own sounds into that, but we've digressed. Wavetables. You've got all different wavetables. Diatonic, these are your classic ones, just basic wavetable shifting between your classic waveforms. Saw, perfect, quintuplet, sine kicker, sine, spectral, synthesis, trash. We've then got hard ones. This is what we're going to be focusing on. Mixed instruments, octaves, where it's the same waveform, but as you scan through it goes up in octaves. Wavetable synthesis, I haven't really looked through these. Vocoder, these are like vocal samples that you can scan through. Vocoded sounds to give that robot-y sort of computer sounds. But we're going to be looking at the hard ones because there's some very, very cool ones in here. If I can remember which one, let's try one of these wobbles. V-wobble. As you can see, the way you scan through the wavetable or the audio file is with this giant index knob. Very magnetic man sort of sounding wavetables. Yes, so what happens when you load a wavetable? As you can see, automatically it changes. If we click back to a VA shape, choose a saw, we've got the keyboard on the bottom. We choose back to a wavetable, hard. Which one did we have? It was one of these wobbly ones, weren't it? Wobble 6. Automatically the keyboard vanishes and then you have a visual display of the waveform or the wavetable. Oh, you can zoom in. If you scroll with the mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out. This is a square wavy sort of blended thing. Increases your volume over time, you can see. So just this window at the bottom, you have a lot of control. Someone subscribed to me. Excellent. Windows 10. I wish you could stop them bloody things. Don't show app icons. Don't show number of new notifications. Oh, we'll sort that out later. Go away. So yeah, just in this window at the bottom you have a lot of control, so you can click this, then automatically changes the index knob to that point. If you see up here, it's correlating to that, so you can get a visual representation of whereabouts you're out in the audio file. You can also scan. If you click and hold it, you can hold a note down. You can do some live scanning of the wavetable that way. You have a volume fade in and out. So if we pull this back to the start, you can create your own fade so that it slowly brings in the volume as you scan through the table. Same with the fade out. Also, the way you can change the number of waves. This dial here underneath the index knob, the number of waves, it's like the length of the wavetable or the amount of audio file that you're going to scan through. As you dial it down to the left, it decreases the file size or the number of waves in the wavetable, so you can have a shorter. Let's introduce the full amount. The index knob still carries the full travel over the chunk that you choose that's in green. So you've got good amount of travel was the right word. Good amount of travel on the index knob to scan through the wavetable. Number of waves, you're just choosing which part of the audio file you want. I wish there's a way that you could drag the start position over. The way you do that is with the phase. No, that's all to do with the envelope. Saying that, I suppose that defines the start position. Yeah, so as I say, just this basic window at the bottom, you have a lot of control over the sound. But then we come to this wavetable editor, or this. It's almost like an envelope / LFO / step sequencer all in one. It's the most powerful modulation tool inside VPS Avenger by a mile. I think they've missed the boat here. They should have made this available. They should have made this as an assignable modulation source like an LFO. So you've only got one of these. If they'd have called this wavetable editor something else, like a step envelope sequencer, and had another section for it so you could introduce more of them, it would have been brilliant. Well, you're going to see what it's capable of doing in a minute. It really is a very, very awesome tool for modulating sounds. So it's virtually an envelope that can loop. The way you enable it, at the minute, nothing's happening. To enable it, you click this little enable knob. Gives you great visual feedback as what's going on. Left to right is time. Top to down is the position of the wavetable. For some reason, it starts at the top and comes back. So it's like playing the waveform backwards at the minute. I always swip it round like that, so it plays from left to right. 9 times out of 10, that's how people design the wavetables to be played from left to right or in linear mode, standard linear mode. So just running across these little bars at the bottom, as you can see at the minute, it's set to loop, which means it's going to do this cycle and then restart back again. You can change it to ping pong, so it's going to go from left to right over the time specified and then go back from right to left. So it's going to swing side to side like people playing ping pong. You can have it as one shot, so it's virtually an envelope. The triggering options are basic. They're the same as what we covered inside the LFO and things like that. You've got voice per voice. So each time a new note is triggered, a new one of these envelopes is... Each time a new note is pressed or a new MIDI note is introduced, a new envelope is introduced. You can have the first note out of a series of notes to trigger the envelope. You can have the last, so every time a new note is triggered, a new envelope is introduced, but it cuts out the one before. If you have first, it's going to carry on doing the cycle no matter how many notes you introduce. Or you can have global first. Just does it once. I normally have voice. You want per note modulation. Center snap, this comes to do when you're modulating this curve. You can change this curve, we'll show you in a minute. Editor section, we'll save that for another minute. That's the most involved bit, that's the bit you're going to have most fun. So quickly, with just this basic saw ramp going up, we'll talk about these knobs we've got at the bottom. Strength, this is how much the index knob affects the wavetable. So you see this little blue bit coming round, that's how far this line is modulating this index knob. It's always mapped to this index knob. You can map it to other things by dragging it and dropping elsewhere. We'll talk about that later on. But yeah, the strength is how far it's going to push that index knob round. So if we have it all the way to the right, full modulation, you can see it's going to go from dead zero to maximum. As we bring it down, it's going to decrease the amount that it goes round, or it's not going to go all the way around to the end. You'll see. If you want just a tiny bit of modulation, very, very slow over time, you can do that. Obviously, you can set key tracking to this, the same as you can the shaper amount, filter cutoff, loads of other things, key tracking. You can also change the curve of the key tracking. smooth. This smooths out the crossfade between the different waves inside the wavetable. So if we introduce a crazy shape, the way you introduce new nodes is just by double clicking on the line, same as Serum or most modern wavetables and LFOs and things have this feature now. Falcon has the same thing. So this smoothness is going to sort of interject a line, an imaginary line between these points, dead center of every crossing point, to smooth it out. So if I make it gradually getting higher like this, it should sound more like a classic sort of saw ramp up that we had to start with, if I have the smooth totally on full. Very, very useful if you want to make it more sinusoidal or cut out some of the harshness in the shapes that you've already got. There are shapes that you can choose from inside this library. That's sort of shown you. That sort of give you a sneak peek of the sequence that I didn't want you to see if you haven't already delved into this. But yeah, there is presets made in there for you. The speed knob obviously is how fast this envelope is going to loop over once it's in loop mode or even in individual mode. You've got classic mode. If you uncheck it, classic mode, I mean it's just beat synced. If you uncheck it, it's totally free running. So you've got normal beat, triplet, dotted. Same as the LFOs, those controls are. This phase is the starting point of the envelope. You can see it, if you have it dead halfway, it's going to start halfway through. All the way to the right is like back at the same starting point again. Real straightforward. The flip totally flips the modulation on its head. You can get some cool sounds if you modulate that flip along with the smooth. Yeah, it's pretty much unlimited what this thing can do. So yes, we've spoke about the wavetable view at the bottom, the way you can introduce fades, control the starting point, change the length of it with a number of waves. The index knob is the overall modulation sweep through the audio source. We've got your different triggering options, different loop modes, loop ping pong. Center snap, I was going to talk about this. This is when you're drawing new curves into this. It's automatically, as you get close to the center line, it's going to snap to the center line for you. This is useful if you want to make unipolar shapes and you don't want to go off center. Something I do quite often if I only wanted it to go halfway. You can see every time the LFO gets to this top point or the envelope gets to this top point, it's exactly halfway on the modulation amount of the index knob. Same if you wanted to go all the way to the top and start halfway. Yeah, that's it now. Now we enter the realm of craziness. As well as just using it as a standalone envelope or a loopable envelope, I like to think of it as an LFO. You can then introduce a sequencer to control how many times and at what speed this envelope is going to cycle through. So at the minute, you see that little tiny 1x there. That means this, now I've engaged this envelope sequencer mode, these become active. Again, you have to choose between loop, ping pong or one shot, so we'll set it to loop. Let's introduce something a bit crazy at the end. So yes, if you crank it up, or click the button and hold it up, it double times it, so we've got two instances of the same thing, if that makes sense. Because we need to set it to one shot. When it's in loop mode, it just introduces new instances of the sequence when it's in one shot. See the effect that has. If you drag down, you can go even slower. You can half time the envelope compared to the speed that you've got there. When it gets really fun is when you're in loop mode, so we'll loop it. We'll double time or triple time it even, get some triplet sort of modulation going on. Drag it up again 5 times. You get the general idea. Now, if you think that's clever that you can have sequences triggered, you can then go one step further. You can introduce different steps or number of types of sequence. So if we introduce this to 2, you can see it's split it in half. First one's still at this 5 times speed thing. Second one is totally independent of it, so we can have that at classic 1 time speed. So, or even half might be cool. Let's change this to 4. We can then introduce another step. Let's introduce 4. Let's change this one to 2 times. Change this one to 2 times. Now we've got 4 sequences, all it triggering the envelope at different speeds. How this can then get fun is if you use this envelope to modulate the volume of the oscillator or the overall volume of the amp. It's going to pulse everything in and out to the same shape. Make some of it a bit more side chainy. Introduce some effects. Let's bring in some distortion. We'll do away with the reverb. We'll keep the delay on. We'll bring in some ensemble or some crazy modulation. Where's the ensemble there? Right, this is like a wavetable blend, this knob. So you've got classic wavetable fade in the adaptive mode. Not really going to notice any difference. If you change it to 0 crossing, it's almost like a bit of pre-distortion. You can see what it's doing in this box up here. It's making everything a bit more defined and rounded. It's sort of, every time it comes to the end of a waveform, it's bringing the volume down to 0 crossing. The waves are happening very fast, so you can't really hear that, but you can really see in the waveform what it does. It's almost like a bit of ring mob modulation, and then you've got symmetry. Again, a lot more subtle. So let's go through some of these presets now. Let's introduce an envelope, do away with the ensemble. Maybe we can get this to trigger the filter cutoff as well, which is cool. change the wavetable up. Let's try some of these vocoder ones. These are some really cool sounds in here. The hard ones are by far the best. Let's go through some of the classic ones. As I say, the hard ones are by far the best. Dub Killer. Let's try some of these. So some of the options as well, if you right click on these, let's initialize this envelope. I'll just talk you quickly about some of the options that you have. So as I said, dragging up or down obviously introduces more instances, or double times or half times the sequencer. But if you right click, it has a lot of other options. You can set it to retrigger. It makes it a lot higher. Ping pong. So it's just bouncing back and forward halfway through the modulation, or halfway through the shape that you've got. That's why it's creating a triangle. Reverse. Totally reverses the shape that you've got. We then have flip. Flips it on its head. Silence. This is useful if you have multiple instances of steps. You wanted to silence one out. Let's bring this one back in. If you wanted to some reason silence out a step. You then have high, which creates full modulation across the board, across the top. So it's like creating that in effect. So high. Medium is a middle line, so it's like having this shape. And low brings it all the way down to the bottom. You would hear something if I didn't have that modulating the volume and the filter cutoff. I don't know what I've done there. There you have it. If that hasn't impressed you, I don't know what will. The more I play with it, the more I find this sequencer very, very cool. I haven't really played around with the presets that much. That's why I've just drifted off a little bit and had a bit of fun there. But if you create your own preset, you can save it. Everything's savable in here. You can save your own shapes inside the LFOs, as you would imagine. You can... there's lots of things you can save inside here. Save your arpeggiator presets. Obviously, you can save your drum sequences, step sequencer presets. You can save pitch modulation presets, mod envelope. See, this is almost as good as that Wavetable generator. This is just like a multi-stage envelope, which you've got inside Serum. You can enable it, set it to one shot, sustain loop, ping pong. You've got the speed, sync it to the clock, triggers and offsets, but there's no way to introduce this sequencer that can control this like you have inside their editor. I really do hope that they'll bring these two together later on. do away with these mod envelopes and just upload more of these wavetable modulating things, because they are awesome. Anyway, this is probably a long video. There was a lot to cover. That is how you can, well, I'll just call this Wavetables and whatever I've called it, you know, because you're watching this video. I'll decide and then do it when I upload it. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching. If you have liked this, please give it a thumb up. If you haven't, give it a thumbs down on the way out. Please subscribe if you haven't, and stay tuned for the next one. Cheers.